The press and the Down Beach Current were notified of this meeting. A copy of same was posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. Would you take a second and turn off cell phones, electronic equipment? We're going to stand for the flag salute. Today is going to be led by Mr. Potts. He's dressed for the occasion.
This one?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Fred, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Becker.
Here.
Commissioner Blumberg. Here. Commissioner Talby.
Here.
Thank you all for being here. Today we have the audit presentation for the year 2012. Mr. Leon Costello of Ford Scott is with us, and Leon, I'll turn this over to you for your presentation.
I have to turn the mic on. That's it. Just hold it in the back till the light's on.
I think it's on.
That's
Yep.
it.
Thanks. My name's Leon Costello from Ford Scott & Associates, and with me is Mike Garcia, also from Ford Scott & Associates. And today is the presentation to commissioners of the 2012 audit. And with that, I'll let Mike get started, and we'll finish with questions if you have any.
Thanks, Leon. Everybody has a copy of the audit report that was handed out just a few moments ago. And there are just a few items I'd like to point out, draw your attention to, the highlights. The report itself is almost 100 pages long. We won't go through page by page. But for highlights, I want to draw your attention to the current fund balance sheet, which will be page 4 of the document. The current fund is the main operating fund for the city. The balance sheet that we're looking at here, page 4, it's comparative. It shows you your assets on the first page for 2012 versus 2011. Then we'll move on to the second page. We'll show you your fund balance and your liabilities, comparative, 12 versus 11. I want to draw your attention to a couple of numbers here. First, you'll see the very first line on the report, the treasurer's cash. $6,944,934.95. You ended the year with $6.9 million in cash. That's up $2.3 million from the previous year. Previous year number is right next to it, $4,676,000. So you're up $2.3 million. But the predominant reason for that increase in cash is the fact that the city did a special emergency resolution for $3.7 million for hurricane expenditures. So we borrowed money, took a note. So of that 3.7, about $1.5 million was unspent at December 31st, cash in hand, so from the note. So your $2.3 million of increased cash is really predominantly due to that note that you borrowed to pay for the hurricane expenditures. That is a significant change from last year to this year. Most of the other items on the balance sheet, when you look at them, and I won't go through them line by line unless you would like me to, but most of the numbers are very similar last year versus this year. There is a number towards the middle of the page. You will see the $3,750,000 that I just mentioned, titled as special emergency. This is a deferred charge. The city will raise this amount over 5 years. So it'll be budgeted 1/5 for 5 years until that $3,750,000 is paid off. Turning to the next page, we've got the liability section of the balance sheet. And once again here, most of the numbers very similar, 2011 versus 2012. And I won't go through all of them, but your encumbrances, your reserve for encumbrances are up about $100,000, a little more than $100,000, from $71,000 to $183,000. So those are just unpaid bills at the end of the year, December 31st, that are ultimately liquidated and paid in cash in either January or February. That increase in that payable amount also adds to the cash on hand being higher at December 31st because you haven't actually dispersed the funds yet. You have another item a little further down Now let's go actually to the reserve for the hurricane damage. You may see the reserve for hurricane damage, $1,511,851.76. That is the balance of unspent cash for that hurricane reserve. So when I told you at the beginning, your cash is up, 1.5 million of it is because of the note. It's the unexpended piece of the note. It's actually $1,511,851.76, most of which is dispersed in 2013 to pay the remaining bills related to the storm damage. You will also see you have the special emergency note payable in the amount of $3,750,000. That's a one-year note that you will roll each year for with a drawdown of 1/5 that you budget. So that note will come due in December, and when you roll that note, you have funds in your 2013 budget to draw down $750,000 of it. So that note will roll for $3 million next year, and then so on until it's paid off over the 5-year period that we talked about at the beginning. There are FEMA reimbursements also to help fund those the storm damage. I know from discussions with your CFO that money has already started to come in the door in 2013. Some of those reimbursements from FEMA. Hopefully the cash flows quickly on that rather than slow.
And some insurance reimbursements too, right?
We also, on this page, the other item I want to draw your attention to is the fund balance number. You'll see it, $3,128,016.08 versus $2,755,000 in the previous year, an increase of about $373,000. And of that fund balance that you have, the $3,128,000, you did use some of it in your 2013 budget. You used $2.3 million of it in your 2013 budget to fund operations. About 73% of your fund balance was used, the December fund balance was used to balance the 2013 budget. But it's nice to see that you do have an increase in that fund balance number, the $373,000.
Which was a decrease the year before. 10 to 11, it went down. So you're back on the rebound again with a positive fund balance.
I do want to move forward now in the audit to page 86. Page 86 is where you will find the comments and recommendations for 2012. And I am happy to report this year that there is only one finding that is in the audit report. Last year there were 5. So the items that we found in last year's audit, the 5 items from last year have all been corrected. And we have one item here that we're citing as a finding and a recommendation that the city will need to take corrective action on. It's there's a lot of detail in this finding, but let me just I'll read the finding and the recommendation, and we can discuss it briefly. The finding is that the minutes, associated resolutions, and approved bill lists of the meetings of the governing body as presented for audit were not complete. What that means is when we come in, one of the first steps as auditors is we read the minutes to determine what action was authorized by the commissioners, mayor and commissioners during the year. That is the first document that we look at to see are transactions authorized. During the year, there were instances where the minutes were not complete, and it made it difficult to determine whether transactions were authorized. Ultimately, there are other audit procedures that we can do to determine that. So ultimately, we don't have any doubt that the transactions we audited were authorized, but the minutes should be complete. It's the first and really the foremost record of the actions that the governing body takes. So the minutes were not complete. The recommendation is fairly obvious, but we recommend that the minutes, resolutions, and approved bill lists of the governing body be accurately maintained, complete on a timely basis, and available for audit. Pretty much self-explanatory. We have been informed that for 2013, the condition of the minutes are much better than we saw in 2012. Obviously, 2013 hasn't been audited yet, so we can't give an opinion on that, but we've been informed by management that corrective action is already underway for that finding.
Further add on that, we did have two separate exits, one with the administrator and CFO and another one with the administrator and the clerk. And in both cases, everybody was in full agreement that these were deficiencies that need to be fixed. So there was no disagreement from the city side.
As far as the comments that I wanted to make, I wanted to make sure I pointed out the most important parts of the audit. If you have questions, I'm always happy to take questions, or if there's anything that I've missed that you want to cover.
Well, I don't think anything that you missed. The only thing I wanted to say is that during the budget process, we talked a little bit more about the overall finances of the city. As you can see, even though we had a major storm on the East Coast, you fared very well. We have not yet taken the reimbursements from FEMA into account in any of this, which is going to be a plus as time goes on. Your budget had a tax decrease of 0.1%, I think, 0.1% was the decrease in the tax rate this year. Your fund balance did improve. Your ratables also improved. Even though we did have this storm, there are towns that lost 30-40% of their ratable base. You actually had an increase in your ratable base. So all in all, moving forward, I think you're on a very positive position financially, and I don't think that we're going to see that change. I don't think anything's happened in the first 6 months that would cause us to worry about 2014. You're also negotiating contracts, which will be settled relatively soon, I would imagine, and that will give you a basis for the next several years in your labor agreements. So all in all, I think you had a very positive year. In spite of what did happen, you're in a bigger building by default. So we're happy that it turned out the way it was and are very pleased to be appointed to do this. Now, any questions from the commissioners?
Maury, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Brenda, do you have any questions?
I'm just pleased. It seems to be a lot, it really, to me, it seems cleaner than last year. Thank you, except for this one area of concern. And the beach badge, no beach badge problems, everything was accounted for properly. And
Yes, and there's a
Awesome.
separate management letter that you'll get
Good.
that'll point out a couple of things of minor items, and the beach badges is discussed in that letter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate it. The process will be that the auditors have presented the audit to the commissioners, and at some time in the next few weeks, we will have a resolution approving it. And thank you very much for the work that you do.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
You too. Thanks. See you.
Thank you, guys.
Are you doing questions for the public?
Not from this. At the next, if the public has any comment and all that, it would be down later. Not now, John. This has just been presented for the commission. When the resolution is on the agenda, you'll have a chance to respond.
Second chance.
Thank you, guys. Why don't we go right to department reports? Chief, do you want to start? I'm going to my right today.
Thank you, Mayor. We're geared up for the July 4th weekend. Things seem to be good. We're ready to go manpower-wise. For those people that aren't aware, we started our pedestrian crosswalk, jaywalk enforcement program last week by doing a decoy operation at Gladstone and Ventnor and in front of the JCC. It turned out very successful. We issued a lot of warnings, and we've been doing several public safety announcements via handouts and things like that about the pedestrian crosswalk law and jaywalking. So it seems to be well received. I haven't gotten any complaints, so that's why I say that.
Nor have I, Chief.
Which shocked me. Everything else is good.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Maureen?
No, actually, I got the complaints because they issued a couple tickets, and now they're coming to court to contest. I told you a couple weeks ago that we were implementing our credit cards in law enforcement. We did that last Monday. Thank you, Fred. He got it done, and it went off without a hitch, so it was really good. And the other thing is we just ordered, I have 3,000 tickets coming. They're supposed to be here today. They'll be here by Friday because the parking group is just, they used up the supply that I had, so we're ready to go. But they've been busy, so it's good.
The tickets
Thank you,
were
Mark.
issued, you ran out of.
Yes, yeah. James?
Jim?
Nothing really to report, other than if anybody has would like text messages from FEMA, I can give you a phone number after the meeting. There's a number you can punch in and they'll send you alerts. That's all I have.
Thank you, Jim. Roger?
Just the building boom continues. In the last 2 weeks, we CO inspected 9 new houses that have been completed and are now being occupied. At the same time, we're approving new houses going under construction.
Stop approving.
So it's just very, very hectic, very busy and active out there. And we're all set for the planning board meeting for July 23rd, where we're going to make the refinements we need to conform to the new FEMA maps in our zoning ordinance. That's it.
Thank you, Roger. I can't forget you. Go, Fred.
Unfortunately, today, the police department had a telephone system crash right before the 4th of July. We were able to get the system back up and running, except it doesn't have voicemail. That's completely dead. I was in the process of upgrading it, but now we're forced to upgrade it. It is a public safety emergency. We're going to use the same vendor since we already have a maintenance agreement. It's going to be a like-for-like system upgrade, and the money just happens to still be in my capital for technology from last year, so we won't have to go do anything special for funding. And that was our morning. So for right now, we're going to keep our fingers crossed that the system stays running until Monday when this new system comes in, and then we'll do the upgrade, and hopefully won't have to worry about it for another 10 years.
The new system will be in Monday?
We're hopeful that the new system will be in Monday. I gave them authorization to order it this morning. I spoke with Rich, and I spoke with Tom to make sure I was in line with everything we were supposed to do. We didn't get 3 quotes because we just don't have time. I can't wait 2 more weeks. And it is a public safety emergency, and then we all are in agreement that that's the right thing to do. I do have it documented, so that'll go into the file for when we purchase it, my process, and we'll get it fixed next week.
Okay. Anything else, Fred?
That's it.
Thank you, Fred. Scott, do you have anything?
Mayor, Mr. Millay is here. This is the fellow who the city of Margate owns a piece of his backyard. I think it's, what is it, Dave, 30 by 47. And he wants to talk to the city, and I told him, well, come here. I guess this would be the appropriate time. He wants to make an offer on is it 30 by 47 piece of his backyard. We've talked about this a long time ago.
Turn the mic on.
Frank, I believe, checked it to make sure there was no utility lines out there, which I think there is not, right? We're good? There is none. Mr. Millay, do you want to address, is that all right, Mayor? Let him address, take 1 minute.
You're here, come on.
Try to move this forward.
Yeah, originally...
I don't know if I can give you 1 minute. I'm usually 3-minute man, but...
Okay, I appreciate it.
State your name and address.
I'm David Millay. I live at 205 North Argyle Avenue, which is block 401, lot 9. Originally, it's my understanding between Argyle and Fredericksburg Avenue, there was a paper street. It was called Ash Avenue. I think it was closed down in the 50s. I don't know if there was ever anything there. And I spoke to the neighbor behind my property, Mrs. Braha, and she says back in the 60s, all the property owners were given the lots that were contiguous to them. My grandparents bought this property in 1970, and they've been maintaining it ever since. Unfortunately, my grandmother died in 1987, and my grandfather in the 1990s, so I didn't know anything about the city owning part of the lot until about 10 or 15 years ago, and I don't know
if there was paperwork they didn't get from the previous owners, if it was supposed to pass on. I don't know what happened, but the bottom line is, we've been maintaining the property for over 40 years, and I've spoken to the neighbors at the contiguous properties, and I have letters here from both of them saying that they have no interest in the lot. It's been fenced from the other properties. We've been maintaining it, like I said, for over 40 years, and I'd like to make an offer to acquire it, and of course, I'll pay the subsequent property taxes also that that'll entail. I'm prepared to offer $3,000 for it.
Michael, why don't you, do you have those letters?
Yes.
You mind? We don't have to decide now, do we, Scott?
No.
Okay.
Mayor, I really just, Mr. Millet had a lot of questions and statements to me. I thought, you're better off talk to the governing body and let you guys, what's going on. We can double check all this. There is a procedure to sell the lot. I don't know that you could give them the lot, but it has no frontage on a public street. It is a part of his backyard. But the assessed value on our tax books is $32,000. The dimensions are, I believe it's 30 by 47, is that what it is?
I think so. I
think it's 30 by
remember,
47. So it's actually not his entire backyard, it's a piece of his backyard. So it's in a tough situation for him. I understand that, you want to clear this up. And so he
Yeah, I've been
wanted to
trying
make an
for a long
offer to you. We can go forward from here, but I thought it might be best if he spoke directly to the three of you and see where you want to go with this.
I have a question. Is it an appropriate time to ask now, or should?
Why not?
So this piece of property is assessed at $32,000, this little piece of property?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and right now, we're not getting any property tax income?
We get nothing.
Because it's owned by us.
That is correct.
So part of me thinks, yeah, it's undervalued with the offer, but then on the other hand, we're not getting any income whatsoever at all because the city owns it.
That is correct.
Okay,
I'm prepared to pay the property taxes.
great, okay.
It's a non-buildable lot. It's significantly undersized, and it has no street frontage, meaning you'd have to trespass over his property or one of the other two neighbors to get to it. So it's kind of unique. I don't know how they came up with the $32,000 figure. I suspect that that's in error.
Okay. Maura, you have any questions?
I don't.
I remember talking about this previously, Mr. Millet, so I'll give this to Mr. Abbott, and we'll come up with some sort of procedure and get back to you in a couple weeks, either yea or
Okay,
nay.
so someone will send me a letter or call me, like how?
Well,
Yes.
probably both.
Like that.
Okay.
thank
You
you.
obviously have to get paperwork if it's a formal, yeah. Okay? All right, thank you very much.
That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Gainey?
I just want to report publicly, I know the mayor had previously reported a couple of months ago that we were looking into and met with some property owners on Amherst Avenue relative to the bulkhead that runs along Amherst Avenue and along the sidewalk on Amherst Avenue, partly either exactly on the border of private and public property, or perhaps the border runs through part of the bulkhead. It's not quite determined 100%. It's about, I think, 1,500 feet along that section, all the way from the Longport border north. There were 5 or 6 property owners there that own that property, but the bulkhead, we did a report in February, and the bulkhead, in portions of that bulkhead are failing, more so than others, and depending on which portion we're talking about. I've talked extensively to the city engineer as well as Frank over the last several months, and as I say, we've met with the property owners in a meeting that was organized by Scott, and I had asked him to organize that meeting back in February or March. Since that time, we've become aware, if you recall, we hired Jim Rotala from Rotala Associates for a very small sum to help us with seeing what's happening with the grants and loan programs that are emerging quite rapidly because of all the money that's been given from the federal government back to the state. So we've had a chance in a very short period of time to apply for a grant to be able to completely rebuild that bulkhead. So I'm here just to report publicly that that application had to be submitted by June 30th. It was put together in about a 10-day period of time. Scott's been in touch with the property owners seeking, we will ultimately need easements from all of the property owners to allow public access across the, on and across that bulkhead if we were to rebuild it. The reason why we're involved is that it's adjacent, immediately adjacent to public property, including the sidewalks and the street. And if that bulkhead fails over a period of time, the street and sidewalk and any utility lines that are adjacent to it would be subject to damage, severe damage. So there is a possibility that we could get funds through the federal government being administered through the state, and we applied on June 26th for about $3 million, which is what our estimated cost, $3.2 million to build about at least 1,500 feet of bulkhead. Did I miss anything, Scott? So if there are any questions, I just want to report that publicly and get it on the public record.
Richard, how many feet of bulkhead? I think you said 50 million, but I don't think.
1,500, I believe.
1,500, okay.
Plus or minus, and it's about $3 million plus or minus.
Thank you.
I have a report that was sent to me. I believe I forwarded it electronically to the commissioners. If not, I certainly will, but I got a hard copy in the mail yesterday, and it has some of the pictures and so forth in here. If you'd like to look at it after the meeting, I have it with me tonight. There's a second opportunity that we had initially looked into for a loan. It's called the FEMA Community Disaster Loan Program, and it's designed for communities that were severely damaged property-wise and rateable-wise through the storm. We really didn't believe that we qualified according to the strictness of the rules, but working with Jim Rotala and his connections at the state, they said that they would consider an application from Margate for this loan. And the reason why I'm bringing it up today, I have discussed this with Commissioner Bloomberg as Revenue and Finance, and he suggested that we bring it up today and just put it on the table for preliminary discussion. The loan would be low interest. The maximum loan amount would be $5 million. The interest rate would be 1% or less. And some of the adjoining towns have received this loan. As you've heard through our auditor today, I don't know whether we're in the business of needing to borrow more money. We have money now, we have a budget in place, and borrowing more money doesn't really solve a problem, it just creates a problem with more interest to be ultimately due. On the other hand, from what I understand about this program, if you do qualify, and if we were awarded money from all the way, a loan, all the way up to $5 million, it could be used to offset in the short run potential tax increases, but certainly if it had to be paid back in the long run, it could cost more money. It's like anything else when you borrow money from anybody, no matter what the deal is. The reason why I'm bringing it up, I'd like you to think about whether we should apply for it. It is a loan. It acts like a line of credit. You could get the loan, which would be really getting a line of credit, and then you would either use it or not use it under whatever the criteria is of the loan. Some would say there's no downside in that. It's a policy decision that has to be made, and I have to tell you, as a business administrator, I'm a more conservative. While I see the advantages of it, I don't see the necessity for it, and I'm not sure that we qualify for it. The potential upside that I haven't mentioned, and it's only a potential upside, is apparently the idea behind it is that in communities that are severely affected, and if it continues, that is, the economy continues, as a result of the storm and there isn't rebuilding, and as a result of that, the rateable base continues to drop and it never recovers, after some period of time, presumably 5 years or more, there's talk about the fact that the loan would be forgiven if you took it out. And so that's an upside from the local government standpoint. It depends on your philosophy of whose money is being spent and whose money is not. I don't expect any decision tonight. I don't even expect anything other than you absorb some of what I'm saying, and that we continue to find out more in dialogue if you would like us to continue to pursue this.
If I'm hearing what you're saying, and I've spoken with other commissioners about this program, it's like if you don't need it, you don't want to borrow it. But then on the other hand, there's a slight possibility that this loan could be forgiven, and then it's like a grant. But we can't count on that, though. So I guess it's whether this loan interest rate is lower than what we might already be paying would be a factor.
Mayor, that completes my two reports.
Thank you, Rich. Lisa?
The only thing I wanted to discuss is the resolution that's on the agenda for 5 o'clock, which is authorizing the rollover of an existing note in the amount of $4,085,000 with the assistance of bond counsel, financial advisor, Phoenix Advisors, and our auditor. And the reason that this is on is it was suggested to me by our financial advisors and by Joel Fleischman, our bond counsel, that in their opinion, and based upon recent experience with other clients of theirs, other municipalities, that by issuing or providing additional information to potential investors, which would be by the way of issuing an official statement, it's enhancing the attractiveness of these notes. And they feel that net of any additional costs of issuance paid to the professionals, we could potentially receive a net reduction in interest of 0.5 percentage point, and they calculated approximately a savings of $14,000. I don't see any downside. I did discuss this with Rich. My first feeling was, is it really necessary? However, they did recently do a few of these rollovers with other towns. The cost of the issuance is just, I believe they're estimating $6,000. It's not a significant dollar amount, and if we could potentially realize a net savings of $14,000, I would recommend doing that at this time. So that's the rationale behind this resolution. The note is coming due on July 23rd, so that's why the resolution would need to be on today so that they can go out to market next week. That's all I have.
Thank you, Liz. Frank?
Yeah, we've been watching Action Landscaping, excuse me, and they will be cutting grass tomorrow, and this past week they did a lot better than they have previous weeks. We also got the prices in for painting the rooms in the municipal building. It was $5,500. We're going to start probably by the end of next week. The ACUA will be picking up trash and recycling tomorrow, and even though it's a holiday. Beach stock went really well. We had really no problems at all. There was a lot of extra trash on the beach, but we were able to keep up with it. Beach headquarters, we're pretty much out of there, but the roof on beach headquarters is in very bad shape. We're out getting prices now. The price is probably going to be around $5,000 to replace it, but we will see how other prices come in. From last June to this June, water-wise, we've used 12 million gallons less than the previous year. That just goes to show you how the weather and people coming on the weekends kind of changed things, for the use of water. And we also ordered the gazebo for the dog park. It should be in within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And we're looking for a big weekend, and I think the fireworks being shot off the barge this year is going to be a great help to Public Works. It's going to help us out tremendously, and I think the people will enjoy the beach a lot more in that area. That's all I have.
Thank you, Frank. Mario, you have anything today?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. First of all, I wanted to publicly thank the MBA, Ed Berger, Anna Maria, all the city workers, all the city departments, all the volunteers that participated and helped make the beach stock a tremendous success. I've heard nothing but good things about that. And personally was down there, very well attended, and I think it was the best ever, and I don't know, but I hope Ed and the MBA can figure out a way to make it even bigger and better next year. So I wanted to publicly thank them for that. I also wanted to ask, there was an email that I read from the mayor in Ventnor related to the dog park, and I wanted to get an update from you, Mike, or Brenda on where we stand with the request from Mayor Bagnell.
Rich, do you want to do that? You want me to do that?
We attended a meeting with Ann Pancoast and the students last week. Rich Deeney, myself, met over there, and we talked mostly about the gazebo and some benches. But they also brought up inviting Ventnor in, and I frankly am, personally, I'm just one of the three of us, but my own opinion is that we need to take care of Margate first, and we also have the firehouse over there. So if we were voting today, I would vote no, but if you guys feel differently, we can put that on the table and vote that.
Okay, so the idea is, if I understood the mayor from Ventnor's email, he's requesting that we open the dog park for Ventnor city residents to sign up and join and pay to use the dog park.
Can I
Is that
jump in here?
correct? Yes.
I'm not sure that is correct. I think a more accurate representation would be that he had a request from one Ventnor resident. And I believe this is a continued request. It's the same resident that is requested from us each year. And I don't think he's really requesting it. I think he's asking for information.
Okay, so in that regard, do we have an official opinion? Again, the email that I read talked about the legality. Scott, can you chime in here? Legally, can we keep residents of Ventnor from joining the dog park? Or would that be a wise move to try and legally keep them from joining the dog park? So because where I sit, I would think that, especially in what you're saying, Mike, if we don't have 1,000 or 2,000 or 10,000 residents banging on our doors to enter the dog park, that we should open it up and allow the residents that want to join to pay and join and use the beautiful park that we built.
And, considering that it sounds like there aren't, that they're not lined up at Ventnor City Hall, that this really wouldn't be a tremendous issue for us. But Scott, legally, can we keep them out? Should we keep them out?
Look, you're the governing body. You guys can make whatever policy you want to make for it, but it is a public park. And it's up to the three of you how you want to handle admittance to this public park. Now, I know we charge admission, membership, I believe it's $30 a year. Other towns do have dog parks and they let non-residents pay, or pay even a greater amount. You could go that option.
Mike, I just think it makes us look bad if we tell them no. Now, the communication came, you're in communication with the mayor at Ventnor?
I spoke to the mayor of Ventnor on Monday.
And so do you have to get back to him? Is that correct? Did you, or you're just, I
don't have the authority to make a decision on that.
Okay.
Okay. But I do have two concerns. Number one, I think you're underestimating the number of dogs in Ventnor. It's one person that has asked, from what I understand, and I'm getting a second hand, the city of Ventnor has over 500 dogs registered. Okay? How many of those people would want to be Margate Dog Park members? I have no idea. We were also promised, when this dog park was done, that we would take care of the Margate residents that live in that area. And I think that's something that also should be considered as we move forward.
And, okay, so what does that mean? What does that mean?
Are you asking what my opinion is right now?
No, what I'm saying is, what does it mean that we promised the residents that we would take care of them?
That they wouldn't have a lot of traffic, that they wouldn't have dogs walking all around their neighborhoods and affect their way of life.
Which we agreed to, and I agree with that. Mm-hmm. And so, do we think that allowing the people in Ventnor that want to enter the dog park would adversely affect that? How many dogs are registered in Margate?
I don't have that number. 60 or 70, I think.
That's what it is.
Pardon me?
Almost 70.
70 registered dogs for the park, or 70 registered dogs in total in Margate? In the park, 70.
How many? Do you know how many dogs are registered in this city?
In fact, more dogs registered in the city when they found out about the dog park, because you have to be registered with the city in order to get into the dog park.
So it's probably a number that's less than the 500 dogs in Ventnor.
Again, and he's not knocking and banging down my door. I was copied on the email. I think it went to you. I just think that the neighborly thing to do, if they want to join, we should let them join. I don't believe that we're going to see an increase tenfold in the amount of utilization for the park, and I believe that it would be a nice thing. And certainly the neighborly thing to do, again, and it was stated in the email, certainly Margate residents enjoy facilities in Ventnor, and to preclude them, I don't think it's right. Especially since I don't believe that our dog park is overly utilized.
Okay. No, and not now. Okay, you'll have a chance to speak. Okay. Thank you, Maureen. That's something that we can discuss and talk about. Is that okay with you? Go. All right. Brenda, do you have anything?
I do. Beach Stock was really great, and thank you, Frank, and your team, and Ed Berger, and Sherry Hoffman, and Anne Marie, bless you, and police and fire. Thank you for everybody that helped, and even the weather cooperated, so thank you. I just wanted to speak briefly about the donations the city used to make to Margate Little League and to the Ventnor Pirates. For the record, I have learned from our auditors that municipalities may not make donations to private organizations. It's against the state constitution. I won't compromise myself or the city by doing something that doesn't fully comply with the state and federal laws and regulations. And I don't think our prior commissions were aware of this because we've been doing it for many years, but now that we know that it's not right, we can't continue, we just can't. Some have criticized me for not permitting these donations, and I would rather everybody, instead of thinking that way, it's illegal, let's be grateful that there wasn't a tax increase like all of our surrounding neighbors have had this past year. So let's try to think positive on that. And then I just want to mention the Ventnor Pump Station. At the last meeting, Mayor Becker announced that there was a meeting scheduled. I didn't know about it, Rich didn't know about it. I did know about it after the meeting because the email went out while we were in the meeting. But Teresa Kelly and I have been meeting with the county and the ACUA and their respective engineers and public works teams for 2 years. The ACUA prepared a cost estimate to repair the existing structure, which came in at $659,000. At this time, we discussed sharing the cost and splitting it 4 ways. Everyone agreed, but when the cost estimate was determined to be below what it should be based on Ed Wahlberg's review, mostly because the bulkhead was underestimated, the bulkhead actually cost more than ACUA had projected that it would cost. That's why it was higher. And also the ACUA, once they determined through legal review that they can't make cash contribution, they couldn't fund it, but they could do an in-kind contribution. So because it was higher and because ACUA was now doing an in-kind contribution instead of direct funding, Ventnor balked a bit. So at that time, we went the grant route. So Ed Wahlberg applied for a grant. It was through the Office of Emergency Management, and we were waiting to hear the status of the grant. We were supposed to hear about the status by the end of the summer. So when I heard that there was this meeting planned, I contacted the County Office of Emergency Management myself to determine what the status was so that I could be up to speed for the meeting. I learned that there are presently 1,400 statewide LOIs, letters of interest for this grant, and that waiting for it might not be the most efficient path to take. So I planned a meeting. So I planned on attending this meeting that was convened. I think Scott and both the mayor of Margate and Ventnor had scheduled it, and it was supposed to be last Tuesday at 1:30. The meeting wasn't canceled, and I wasn't notified, nor was Ed Wahlberg or Pat Power, but the 3 of us did meet, and we went over the updated estimate for the repair. And we decided that we should bring everybody together, so we planned another meeting for Tuesday at 9 o'clock. This was a great meeting. It was very well attended. Everybody attended except the county because there was a meeting scheduled on Monday, unbeknownst to us. They thought that meeting replaced the one on Tuesday. So let me finish. I think Teresa Kelly and I have managed quite competently, and I don't understand now why the mayors want to jump into this, which is our department, and take over these meetings. Furthermore, in an effort to control our solicitors' legal bills, we all are supposed to be, or we all kind of agreed to go through Rich Deeney. And again, Rich didn't know about this meeting, I didn't know about this meeting. I think Scott's time can be better spent not scheduling meetings and sending invitations out for the mayor. At the last meeting, which we had on Tuesday morning, I asked the county if they could draw up an interlocal agreement for the 4 parties to share expenses since they had in-house counsel. It makes sense for them to draw it up because they've got legal on staff. And I'm waiting to find out from them whether they can or not. If they can't, the ACUA is offered to draw it up. So our respective commissions and solicitors would just need to review it. The latest is that Ventnor is opening the pump station at the next low tide. So the next low tide we have, Ventnor's going in, they're going to open it up, they're going to call Ed Wahlberg, and he's going to take pictures, and they're going to assess the condition of the existing structure. And then all the engineers are going to meet and go over a conceptual design based on the condition of the building. And then we're going to all reconvene as a group with a refined estimate and to repair this. And I just want everybody to know that the station will not eliminate the flooding entirely, but it will help considerably. It's not going to be entirely eliminated. And it is a very important project, and it's a project that I've been passionate about and I think on top of. In fact, Margate was on board in the get-go. We encumbered $200,000 for its share in 2002, Ordinance 2012-05. If our commissioners wish to move forward on this project, once the total's been refined, or the estimate, with the professional assistance of Ed Wahlberg and Jim Rotella, we can bond the money to do it, and then Jim Rotella and Ed Wahlberg can still solicit grants, and if a grant is received, we can reimburse our respective budgets. And I'm confident that Teresa and Kelly and I had this fully under control, and I respectfully ask Mayor Becker and Mayor Bagnell to let us handle it. Thanks.
Thank you, Brenda. I'm blessed. I'd like to also thank everybody for, the great affair of Beach Sock, which was number 4. Keeps getting, as Mari said, bigger and better. A lot of people worked to put that together, and I'd like to thank them all. And lastly, I'm amazed at the continued building boom in Margate. It makes me have a very good feeling that people have confidence to invest here. We probably have going up now houses in the 40s, Jim, probably, at least, higher. I believe last year we had a total of 45 new houses. We're having a number greater than that go up right now. All of us should feel good about people's confidence in Margate. It's a very good feeling. And with that, we'll open to public comment. You have 3 minutes for anything that was discussed here.
Phil Potts, 26 North Frontenac. Mayor, thank you for permitting me to lead the Pledge of Allegiance today.
My pleasure. You're dressed appropriately.
Thank you. Hey, I want to wish everybody and the administration of the city a happy 4th of July. It's been a good year in the long run. A couple things I wanted to address. Rich, the item that Rich brought forth about the possibility of a low-interest loan, basically a line of credit sitting out there. I think one thing else you need to take a piece of data as you take a look at whether you want to do this or not. Our Federal Reserve is talking about interest rates beginning to move in 2014. Sounds like a 1% or less line of credit might be a good idea for the city. Just to have it available should the rates begin to move and Lisa and her compatriots find need to borrow for the city in the future. I suggest you take that into consideration when you kick this around. I'd like to also tie that into the extensive information that Commissioner Talby just presented on my beloved subject of the pumping station. In the interest of everybody on Winchester and the cross streets in my end of town where we have frequent waterfront property. I have no idea, but is there any possibility of combining the monies necessary with that, with the low-interest loan line of credit that Mr. Dini is talking about? Question mark. May put strength into the application going to the state. I understand. Excuse me, and I was close to this after the mayor mentioned the meeting at the last meeting here. I followed up both in the Public Works Department the day after the meeting was scheduled to see what I could find out happened. I had a conversation with the mayor after that also, and I was very despondent that the meeting did not happen. I've been inquiring about it for 3 or 4 years, as people know. I'm encouraged that something is happening. And I truly implore, as leaders of the city, Mayor Becker and Commissioner Talby, put your differences aside, get together, and represent the residents of this town. It's exceedingly important for that. It's a big matter for the residents, and I know egos get involved, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes we need to shake hands and decide what is the best way to accomplish the goal, not who accomplishes the goal. Please stick with it. Let's beat it up and get a result. The last thing is, it was talking about the dog park. Commissioner Blumberg, you mentioned traffic. I assume you were talking about dog traffic. In the back of my mind, I think about, auto traffic. Ventnor's a much larger city than we are. Some of these dogs, they probably have chauffeurs, possibly to bring them to the dog park. There may be a parking problem generated in the neighborhood of the dog park, in addition to noise and more dogs for the residents down there. I'm aware of the turmoil that went through the city when you guys tried to mull around whether you want to do a dog park or not. You will ignite that again. I'd suggest you really take a look at it from the residents' standpoint as far as auto traffic as well as dog traffic and noise. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Anyone else?
Sewell, 22 West Drive, following up on the remarks of Ford Scott and our city administrator. But just before that, I'll remind the mayor and his cohort that they would know the dog count if they complied with state statute that mandates a canine census. Let's get on the stick and do your job, Mayor. And of course, I might urge Commissioner Blumberg to open up his backyard, as well as the city solicitor, for those vendor dogs. Be cordial to them. There's such a thing as quiet enjoyment, Commissioner Blumberg, and I think those poor residents back there are entitled to it. Furthermore, the raw, untreated fecal matter flows into a very fragile ecosystem back there. And it's extremely injurious as it is now. We don't need more raw, untreated fecal matter flowing into the areas back there. I think it's not ecologically responsible. But more importantly, let's get back to Ford Scott. Ford Scott clearly made a point that there's not sufficient transparency, both in our ordinances and resolutions. Furthermore, Ford Scott itself is seriously amiss and remiss in not addressing the issue of FEMA contributions. And the understanding of these emergency bonding was that these bonds would be retired as soon as FEMA coughed up the cash. And I urge this city administrator to get on the stick and retire those bonds ASAP. And the city administrator may use the euphemism of a low-interest loan as something that is attractive. But you know, city administrator, easy credit to tax and spendthrift commissioners like we have here is an invitation to squander money. I don't care if they're giving you with zero interest, city administrator. I would strongly urge you to discourage any type of additional bonded indebtedness. It was my impression that you were brought on board to reduce the bonded indebtedness and not increase it. No matter how easy it is or attractive it is, let's get off this addictive borrowing, taxing, and spending. You say in the short run it might reduce taxes, but in the long run it comes back to bite you in the butt. So do your job, city administrator.
15 seconds, John. 15
You're
seconds.
interrupting me when I'm on a roll, Mayor.
I know, John. That was my intent, John.
Of course it is. But you're going to have to comply with not only the state statute, and since your cohort, co-defendant, and co-conspirator is so intent on complying with the state constitution, I will have further comment at the 5 p.m. session about your responsibilities under the state constitution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. It's nice having you here, Rich.
I just want to thank John for agreeing with me. He just did it in a strange way.
Ann Pancos, 200 North Osborne Avenue. Just a brief, quick history about the dog park. We were asked to form a committee to get dog park going. And there were 5 of us involved. And the first thing, I believe if I'm correct, Tom asked Ventnor if they would be interested in sharing a park, because they had a lot more land than we did, and we would provide the fencing. At that time, they were not interested in any dog park. So Tom said, let's get our own going, and that's what we did. And if you remember, Maury, we did have a lot of problems with the people back in that area. And you were very in favor of the dog park, and you did encourage us, and we continued with it. And we did get the dog park. Now, if they're wanting to come into our dog park, I just checked last week, and there are 430 dogs registered in Ventnor. And I don't believe that we will be able to stop a certain amount of dogs from signing up in Margate. I do think that there will be a lot of problems from that area back there. It has quieted down. We've gotten a lot of things under control, and I think that this would be a very difficult situation. The committee got together, and the majority of the committee, there was one member that said we should try and let 50 members in from Ventnor. I don't believe that would work. I believe that we would have problems, and I certainly believe we would have problems from the people that live in Margate. And if we took a poll and went around to them to see if they would like to have other dogs from Ventnor in, I think that the city officials would have a lot of problems. So that's just my comment, along with 3 other members that did not think it was a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Anyone else?
Steve Moore, 103 North Sumner. I'd just like to comment on the dog park. I think before any vendor dogs are allowed in Margate, we should go back there and ask the people that live around there what they think. And if the neighbors want the dogs, fine, then let the dogs in. If the neighbors don't want the dogs, because they're the ones that are going to have to live with the dogs. If they don't want them, then don't do it. You pay a terrible price for being a nice guy, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else? Is there a motion to close public comment?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Mayor Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Blumberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Talby?
Yes.
Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Mayor Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Blumberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Talby?
Yes.
The meeting is adjourned. We're going to take a very short break, and we will be right back.